Hi there, welcome back for episode 4 regarding fathering and fatherhood. We are going to be picking up talking about what happens for little boys in instances of father absence. And so there are 8 things that primarily occur, and I'll try to go through each one of these. One is a high rate of conduct disorder and a high rate of delinquency. Another issue is drug and alcohol abuse. Number 3 is violence. Another one is a higher rate of adult incarceration. Number 5, problems with school attention, school problems, low academic achievement, and bad grades. Number 6 is a lower IQ for children from father absent homes. That would be boys. Lower career opportunities. And finally, number 8, poverty. Okay, so let's just jump into this. One of the things that individuals like family court, police officers, and child specialists, if you talk to any of them, they will admit that it is a well-known fact that when children are deprived of active fathering, they are at a higher than average risk for involvement in the criminal and juvenile justice systems. And so for little boys, what researchers have found is that the family structure is related to juvenile delinquency. And this is related to growing up without a father in the home. And this placed a high percentage of boys at risk for delinquency and violent criminal behavior during childhood. And so one of the other things that happens with children with these higher rates of delinquency is they have a higher rate of being diagnosed with conduct disorder. And that is a disorder that's related to like violating the rights of others. Now, delinquency isn't the only issue. When little boys grow up without a father in the home, it puts them at risk for multiple poor adult developmental issues later on in life. And another pressing concern for little boys who grow up in father absent situations is that of illegal drug abuse and alcohol usage. And so the absence of a father in the home seems to be a strong predictor for drug use among such little boys. And when we're looking at the issue of drug abuse among adolescent father absent boys, it's been shown that the boys use drugs at a rate that's higher than little boys who might use drugs who have a father present in the home. And so even when little boys who have a father present in the home use substances, it's at a lower rate than boys who have no father in the home. And this is the case even when you're looking at boys who come from similar neighborhoods, similar academic backgrounds, and even similar parental monitoring. And so that absence of the father seems to be a really important factor in terms of the nature of the drug abuse, the nature of the alcohol usage. And it's also important to note that illegal drug use among children, it's a crime in and of itself. And so that alone places children at higher than average risk for problems with the juvenile justice system and the adult criminal justice system. Now, as you can imagine, there have been attempts at looking at why this is the case. And one of the reasons that some researchers have postulated is that there is a lower rate of surveillance of the children when the father is not there. So you have fewer eyes on the child, monitoring the child's behaviors, monitoring when the child is coming and going, and things like that. And so that father absence means that there are fewer people actually paying attention to the little boy during a time when little boys tend to be pretty darn active. Okay. So, so that's a very important issue. And even though a lot of mothers will attempt to find replacement, if you will, fathers for their children, such as stepfathers and uncles and grandfathers and boyfriends, the biological father, as I mentioned before, is irreplaceable. And so even though those other entities can serve as a support system for a little boy, they cannot replace the father. They simply cannot. Now, some believe that the biological father can be easily replaced by a stepfather, and they're thinking that this will lessen the harm done by the father's absence. So this can really be sort of a father stand-in. But the research does not support this. This is a myth. In fact, what researchers have found is that family instability and growing up in a step-parent home was related to increased delinquency among children. And so that stepfather that people presume will serve as a protective factor, inserting that stepfather into that family dynamic actually creates more havoc for the children, and it actually increases the rate of delinquency. Now, I can't say that it causes the delinquency, but there is a correlation between those two things. So stepfather in the home and increase in delinquency and childhood incarceration. So what does this say? If you are a father listening, what this says is that there's no other man who's going to be able to step in and take your place. A father's role cannot just be passed off to a stepfather. That is a wrong assumption that people have, and it doesn't serve the children well. It's really a misconception. And so one of the things, and this is really interesting, one of the things that researchers have demonstrated is that when a father is present, all of the parties in the household, they actually engage in less psychological dysfunction and illegal behaviors. This includes the mother, the father, and the child. And so the father's presence actually serves to reduce the amount of antisocial behavior for all family members. Now, a father's absence is also felt in terms of academics, like I mentioned before. And so when children live in a father-absent household, everything suffers in terms of school. Their behavior suffers, their schoolwork suffers, which means their academic achievement suffers. And this is reflected in poor attendance. They have an increase in disciplinary referrals. Their grades are lower. And there's just an overall instability in terms of school performance when little boys live and exist in father-absent homes. And they also some researchers have uncovered that children who have prolonged absence from their fathers actually have lower IQs than children with present fathers. And so can you see how dangerous this is? The father being absent from the child actually having a correlation with the child having a lower IQ. This is a problem. And this problem is made worse when the child in the father absent home is in a working class family. And this is usually the case for children who come from Aboriginal backgrounds, from indigenous backgrounds, from Hispanic backgrounds, Native American backgrounds. So that's where the problem is greatest. And when I say indigenous and Aboriginal, I also am including what you would consider to be African American and Caribbean. And so As academic achievement is also tied to physical health and psychological health, it's also tied to occupational health and career opportunities. And so there are a lot of things that converge related to this absence of the father. So for mothers and fathers and policymakers and judges that are wondering what are the implications for the father's absence and presence, the implications are that the absence is far-reaching in terms of implications. And the implications are, they're very significant. Because of this, a father's presence or absence in a child's life is monumental. And it's not only monumental for the future of the child, it's monumental in terms of the future grandchildren. And so these problems with father absence take on a role that goes from generation to generation to generation. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care and see you soon when we return with part 5 on family functioning and father presence or absence.